If you could save 10 years of your life, save the guesswork, save the failures, save all of the lessons learned and condense them all into 1 hour. Hack the learning curve so you don't have to make these same mistakes, don't have to learn these lessons by failing, but can learn them now. Would you do it? In this video, I'm going to show you 10 years worth of lessons and mistakes and failures that I've made that held me back in my training so that you can fast track your results. In the past 10 years, I have gone from bodybuilding to cycling. I have reached my peak physique, lost it, and then reached it again, and now I'm maintaining it. I've learned the difference between training for aesthetics and training for performance, and that's what I want to show you in today's video. 10 years worth of training mistakes, training lessons that I have made that I want to share with you. My name is Ely. I'm a strength coach for cyclists. Let's dive right in. All right, so these lessons aren't in any particular order, just as I thought of them and wrote them down. I wish I could say they are in most basic to most complex, but can't help you there. But lesson number 1 is training for aesthetics and training for performance are not the same, and thus they are not going to have the same kind of training plan. A lot of the time, we start strength training, it's for aesthetic purposes. We want to look a certain way, have this certain physique in mind, or some bodybuilder on Instagram's physique is kind of making us a little bit jealous. Don't worry, I've been there too, I get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Really, there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve your physique to look a certain way. So listen, you go into the gym, you walk into the weight room, whatever it is. The majority of people are training for some kind of physique goal. Whether it's the new year, new me crowd that want to lose 20 pounds, whether it's the bodybuilders that want to get a little bit of volume on them, get a nice pump. And very few athletes are training for athletic performance in sport. And because training for performance and training for aesthetics is not the same, they can't be copied. You can't use the same style. And so if you're a cyclist, if you're watching my channel or subscribed, you're probably a cyclist, and you're trying to get stronger on the bike, you need to understand the distinction between these two, or you'll end up spinning your wheels, haha, pun intended, with little results to show for it when you're actually out on your bike. So here's the thing. When you walk into the gym nowadays, the most popular kind of training is the hypertrophy bodybuilding style, 8 to 12 reps, 3 to 4 sets, training to failure, high volume. This kind of training is very popular right now. Don't get me wrong, it's great for building muscle. It's fantastic for making those structural adaptations to your training that you want to see so you can gain that physique. But it doesn't always translate well to optimal sport performance. And I know this because I've been there. Before I got into cycling, I came from the more bodybuilding background approach to training. I was sitting at around 200 pounds at my heaviest. I was squatting 315, bench pressing 225 pounds regularly. I had big quads, I looked strong. But when I got into cycling, when I hit the road, I was getting dropped, could not keep up with skinny old guys. And I love these skinny old guys. I still ride with them today. I can keep up a little bit more now. But all my years in the gym, training and working and pushing and building had not prepared me for the demands of my sport or my newfound sport. It was humbling. I am not saying that there's anything wrong in training for aesthetics. There's nothing wrong in training for a good physique, training to lose weight, training to build muscle, training to look a certain way. Nothing wrong with that at all. I've just been there. I respect anyone who is training hard to reach that kind of goal, who shows up consistently, who puts in the work. But you need to understand what your goals are and what the training style required to reach your goals are before you go into the gym and do anything willy-nilly. And I'm saying this because I want you to save your time. If your goal is to increase performance, research or learn or hire a professional who can actually help you with that. If your goal is to better your physique, again, research and learn and know exactly what you need to do to perform that. Different results require different paths. If you're the person who wants both, you want to excel in your performance and you want to excel in your physique, by all means, go for it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just want you to know what you're sacrificing. You're going to be like an all-season tire. You're going to be okay at everything and not great at any one thing. Average at pretty much everything, but not excelling in one. You can still make solid progress in both areas. And if you aren't looking to be the best, to have the best physique or to have the best performance, then you can do both. Sure, you may leave a lot of potential gains on the table, but if you're just doing this for the recreation and you're not doing this to be the best or to excel, that's fine. Just be clear about your priorities and what you actually want to achieve. Are you training for looks? Are you training for performance? Are you training for a bit of both, or are you just training to be healthy? Once you know that, you can tailor your program accordingly. And just a quick note while we're on this topic for just this misconception that I used to have, and I'm sure maybe perhaps many of you still have, muscle size does not equal muscle strength. It's a huge misconception thinking that, a certain volume of muscle mass equals strength, but it's not simply a bigger is better equation. Strength training is nuanced. There are different types of strength involved. For example, maximum strength, the maximal force a muscle can produce, which is typically seen under isometric conditions. There's strength endurance, which is the ability to sustain a smaller force over a prolonged period of time. There's starting strength, which is the ability to generate force quickly from a start, like an isometric static position. And there's so many other different kinds of strength. Bodybuilding focuses a lot on structural hypertrophy, increasing the size of muscle fibers, right? A lot of training for performance focuses on more functional strength and neuromuscular efficiency, which means learning to do things in a different way. The how matters more than the what. Recruiting the right muscles at the right time, creating stiffness and relaxing the right places, and sustaining smaller forces for a longer amount of time. So this takes me into lesson number 2. Ego lifting is not worth the risk. And I'm sure we've all fallen into this trap, myself included. Your buddies go invite you to go work out with them. And whether you're a veteran weightlifter or you're a newbie who's never worked out before, you don't want to be the guy who's doing only body weight stuff. You don't want to be embarrassed. And I get it. As if it's something to be ashamed of, think about all the calisthenics athletes who are able to do these muscle ups and pull ups and planche and hold themselves using only their body weight and have this insane amount of strength. But anyways, the stigma is if you're in the gym and you're only doing body weight, that's something to be embarrassed of. And so you load up the bar, the squat bar, the bench press, whatever it is, way past anything that your body, your ligaments, your tendons, your muscles, your tissues, your joints have ever experienced or are ready to handle. It's a very dangerous game to play, letting your ego control what you do in the gym. So there's a few things that could theoretically happen when you ego lift. Number 1 is nothing. Consider yourself lucky. Like seriously, this is a warning, because if you decide to continue down this road, allowing your pride to make decisions for what you're going to do, you will be the guy who's known for that. You'll be the guy who's known for saying he can squat 300, 400 pounds, but also known for only doing a 16th of a rep. You'll be known as that guy. And I think that will hurt your ego a lot more in the long run than building your way up will. Trust me, from experience. I don't want you to have to go through that. I've been the guy who wants to try to impress my friends at the gym or to impress a girl. Not only do you not impress your friends, not only do you not get the girl, but you also put your body at risk. Your body is not a toy. So at best, this is the best case scenario, is nothing happens. Worst case scenario is you injure yourself. I hurt myself. Today is what you will be playing in your car on the way home. This can be any kind of injury. It can be something small, like a tear. It can be something big, like a disc. And now you have to work at rehabilitating the muscles and the tissues back and spend weeks, if not months, or even years working your way back to a place where you can even do anything in the first place. And the reason I'm warning you so heavily about this is because I myself have been through this. I have let my pride make my decisions for me, and I've suffered for it. Galatians 1:10 says, "Am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Am I trying to please man? If I was still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ." Now, obviously, as a Christian, I understand also that Paul is not contextually speaking about ego lifting in the gym. But if you are a Christian and you're watching this just like me, remember that seeking the approval of man is temporary. It'll only go so far. Seeking the approval of God is eternal. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Lesson number 3, no one is immune to injury. I remember training with my cousin back in 2019, and he was deep into bodybuilding. He was quite impressive. He had heavy lifts, routinely squatted 4 plates, 4.5 plates, routinely was bench pressing 3 plates. Very solid technique as well. And one day we were warming up for our barbell squat, right? And Again, he's able to squat 4 or 5 plates. So he puts the first plate on there, 135 pounds on the bar. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the warm up, as he's at the bottom of the squat, he yells a little bit, drops the weight, like squirms out from underneath it. I'm like, what is happening? Is he okay? Like, wait, what just happened? Like, it's such a light weight, how is he hurt? He fell onto the floor, he's holding his back. I'm like, what is happening right now? And he was yelling and screaming in the middle of the gym, saying that his pain was at a 9 out of 10, and it was running down his lower back into his legs. He had difficulty walking. I was thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, should I call the paramedics? I don't know what to do right now. He ended up calling his parents, who came and helped him, and his dad's a doctor, so I guess he kind of knew what to do, brought him some heat and some ice. And I was baffled that day. This guy trained 6 times a week, had a very solid routine, solid technique, ate healthy, has been working out for years, and yet he got injured. And that was the day I learned that no one is immune to injury. I currently train a lot of athletes myself. Many of the athletes, if not most of them, have injuries. In fact, injuries are very common among athletes, overuse injuries especially. I want to be clear. Training does reduce the risk of certain types of injury. For example, it may reduce the risk of strength-related deficiencies or instability, or take a lot of pressure off the joints and absorb shock, but it may also make you more susceptible to overuse injuries. So why am I telling you this? Because sometimes we can get so deep into our training. We begin to feel like we're on top of the world, right? Like we're invincible, but we are not. We are mere mortals. And that being said, everyone can get an injury. No one's immune, but the way you see your injury and the narrative you tell yourself affects how you recover and move on. Let me elaborate. I know a guy who had an old injury from decades ago pop up when he decided to resume his strength training. But because of his past experience with how he handled that old injury, you know, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, he didn't want to end up where he was back decades ago, all of this caused him to give up because he didn't want to experience those same mental emotions and narratives and all of the, I don't even know what you want to call it, PTSD, the fear that he had decades ago. And so he gave up. On the other hand, there's the story of Brian Carroll. Brian Carroll was this insane athlete who was squatting 1,100 pounds. Like, that's an insane weight, and deadlifting 800 pounds. And he ended up in this debilitating pain, spinal compression injury. I listened to a podcast of his. He met with Professor Stuart McGill, who is the leading practitioner for back pain. And I'm actually doing an episode on back pain later, so keep your eyes out open for that. And you know, he talked with Dr. Stuart McGill. He kind of reset his training. He worked hard, he fought. After coming out of this spinal compression injury, he became the first person, regardless of body weight, to be able to break the 1,300 pound squat record in powerlifting. And he still is pain-free, symptom-free 10 years later. The mental aspect that must have gone into his fight, into his recovery journey, telling himself that he can get back and even get back stronger than he was before, was probably harder than the injury itself at some points. Because there's this enormous mental battle when it comes to injury, and it's not just a physical battle. That's why the athletes that I work with who are going through these injuries and yet they continue to train, continue to fight, continue to push, I can see them confidently as some of the most resilient people I know.
You know what I want to know is, what the heck is this? What is this? Sometimes I find things in this office, I'm like, what was this used for? Oh, the hat comes off and there's a hole in this guy's head. Okay.
One of the most important lessons in fitness, and yet one that's rarely ever taught, especially when people first start working out. It's the foundation of just about every movement that you do, whether you're strength training, whether you're cycling, or simply moving through your day. It is that the position of your joint dictates the functions of your muscles, aka joint position dictates muscle function. To put it simply, the angle of your joint, the alignments of your joints, their placement relative to other muscles and other joints dictate how your muscles function, which becomes the prime mover, which becomes agonists and antagonists and stabilizers. Changing the position of the joint can change the way the muscles work together. Now, remember, there's never just one muscle that's doing one thing at one time all the time. Muscles and your body work synergistically. So even when we're doing rows, for example, you can't always say that your lats are the prime mover the entire time, no matter what, and this muscle's the agonist and this muscle's the antagonist, because if you change the grip a little bit, it changes things. So take a basic exercise like a push-up. If you change the grip for a push-up from a regular 45 degree to a diamond push-up, now we're coming in, it's much more tricep focused. If you widen it a little bit, much more chest. Back to that regular, elbows tucked in, it's going to be much more inner chest. A little bit more of the front delts. A simple change in the grip or hand placement can have a huge effect on the exercise. Okay, this sounds kind of technical, right? Why should you care about this? Well, here are 4 big reasons that you should care about this no matter what kind of training that you're doing. Number 1 is you can optimize your training. Let's say that you're struggling with a certain exercise. Maybe you're experiencing discomfort when you're doing the chest press at a 45-degree angle, right? Understanding how your joint position dictates the function of your muscles can help you make adjustments. For example, one of my athletes has a torn rotator cuff, an impingement in the supraspinatus that flares up specifically during the chest press. So when he is coming in with the elbows out, it flares up. What we noticed is neutral grip, palms in towards each other, elbows coming in rather than out, keeps it nice and tucked in. Now there's no more flare up. He's actually able to get through this entire movement pain-free by simply tweaking the grip, the placement and position of the joints relative to the other joints. We were able to alleviate the pain and maintain this productive workout. Reason number 2, it can boost your performance. And this is especially critical for those of you in my audience who are cyclists. Training for performance is not just about lifting heavier or pushing harder. What it really is about is mastering the technique and mastering the movements. Proper joint positions that are proper for you. Again, what's good for you isn't good for everybody else. What's good for this guy is not necessarily what's right for this dude.
I don't like his mustache.
But proper joint position allows you to efficiently engage the right muscles, relax other muscles, and will directly cause more power and performance on the bike. Number 3 is preventative measures and rehab. Remember, poor joint alignment can be a major culprit of a lot of injuries. Paying attention to the position of your joints can not only help you avoid injuries, but also serves as a tool for rehabilitation. And number 4, this allows you to fine-tune exactly what you want to train. If you want to target a specific muscle like the glutes or the inner calves, you can understand how to manipulate the joint movement to target that muscle, the joint position to target that muscle. Something as simple as adjusting your hip position during a squat, the angle of your feet, whether your toes are elevated or not. To make the most of this concept, we have to understand something called proprioception or kinesthetic awareness. It's literally your body's ability to sense its position in space. And this awareness comes from sensory feedback in and through the joints and muscles and everything in your body coming through the central nervous system. It's kind of like your body has this internal GPS and it guides your movements with precision, right? Now, proprioception is useful because it helps you maintain control of what you need to maintain control of. So for example, let's say you're about to do a really sharp turn on the bike. You are able to keep that foot down, to keep the other foot relaxed, to relax your shoulders, engage your trunk, engage your core, and lean into that turn. Proprioception is what allows you to stay in tune with your body and understand where your joints are, where your muscles are, where your limbs are at any one point in time, and to manipulate that, right? It's a skill that will help in the long term as well. For example, I have one athlete who we make tiny differences, whether it's in the grip, whether it's in the position of the neck and the head or in the shoulders, and he notices everything because he understands that a small change in head position, a small change in grip, these small changes have an effect on our central nervous system and the way we adapt to an exercise. Another athlete of mine who doesn't have that kind of kinesthetic awareness, we can make a huge difference to an exercise, and I ask him where he feels it, he's like, I don't. And so he doesn't feel these things, right? That's why we have to develop this sense of kinesthetic awareness. I hope I didn't go on a tangent too much here, but if you're interested in developing it, here's an exercise that you can do. Take an exercise that you're already doing with solid technique, such as a squat or a hinge. Make sure it's unloaded, especially the first time that you do this. Close your eyes and perform the exercise and feel each muscle. As you take away this one sense, literally, your proprioception, the feedback you get from the rest of your body is going to be enhanced. Even better, do this in a quiet place. Take away your hearing too, or put noise canceling headphones on and listen to your body. Feel what's engaged, feel what's turned off, what's turned on, and be more sensitive to the central nervous system inputs. All right, next lesson. You can overdo it and you can underdo it. You need to find the balance. And this is a lesson that I learned the hard way. So I'm about to be real vulnerable here. Buckle in. When I was 20, I overdid it. I was strength training 6 times a week. I was going on runs, fasted cardio. In fact, right after my strength training sessions, I would go on a fasted cardio run where I still wouldn't have any food in me, probably doing anywhere between 5 to 7K, 6 times a week. I'd maybe get a day of rest if I was like feeling excessively tired, right? And even as I'm thinking back and reminiscing about these times, there's this part of me that's like, wow, simpler times. Those are the good old days. But one day I felt this flutter in my heart and I didn't think that much of it. You know, like your heart skips a beat, it happens, people get palpitations, whatever. Everyone has those. And so I just went on with my day. A few days later, I felt another palpitation. Like, oh, okay, I just, another one, happens, like whatever, what to do. And then it happened again that day, so 2 times. A few days later, got 3, 4, 5, kept on happening again and again and again. I kept on building in intensity and duration that I went one day that I was having these palpitations every few seconds for the entire day. It was probably the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me. And so guess what I did? I went to the hospital, went to the ER, and because it was a heart problem, they took me straight in. The nurse was asking me a few questions. She asked me about my athletic history, asked me if I work out. I told her I did. She took my blood pressure. She took my heart rate, which was sitting at 28 beats per minute. And that was normal for me back then because of how much I was training. So after spending the day in the hospital, they asked me to wear an ECG. And I go home with this ECG. I still have a picture. I can put it in here. And I have to wear this ECG for the next few days, which measures my heart activity. Those were probably the most depressing days because I couldn't shower. I wasn't allowed to exercise. I was just in bed wearing this thing on my chest strapped to me. And after this, they sent me home. They collected the information. They sent me home and they told me I have a condition called athlete's heart, where my heart basically adapted to my training by getting bigger and stronger, and as any muscle would. And like now because of this, it's more efficient, so I have a decreased heart rate. But one of the effects of this is it can cause palpitations. And apparently these are common symptoms for elite and recreational athletes as well who can overdo it. So they told me there's nothing they can do. The best thing I can do is to just chill on my training a little bit, take a few days off, take a few weeks off, and literally detrain. But I was addicted, and so that same night, because I felt finally free, I went for an 8K run and hit a record. The funny thing is, as athletes, we work out to get healthier. We work out to get healthier and fitter and a lower resting heart rate and a nicer physique, and that's the crown of achievement. But for me, that all turned into my fear. Distinguishing between a pathological heart condition, such as I'm having a heart attack, and my heart adapting to my training is indistinguishable. The only reason they found out is because I was an athlete and there was no other presenting problems. So literally over exercising and overdoing it caused me to have the same symptoms as someone who was not exercising at all and having a heart attack. On the other side of this is doing nothing at all. Now I'm gonna give you an example of this, and it's not gonna be a fitness example, it's going to be a dog training example. What happened was we adopted this dog in Dubai. Her name was Bella. Her name is still Bella. We brought her to Canada. She's this crazy husky. So we bring her to Canada, and during the month of May, my business was a little bit slower at the time. And so I decided that I would put in a few hours every single day to train her. I'm like, okay, I have the time right now. Business is slow. I'll put in the time to train her so that I can get her to the place I want her to be. In Arabic, we call it muhtaram. She's well behaved, she's kind, she is a well-mannered dog, she's under my control, she obeys me and is obedient because she wants to be. So that was my goal with her, and I got there. I put in lots of work with her. I trained her for a few hours every day, made her work for her food. I got her to the point where she was consistently off leash without an e-collar in a very high distraction zone with other dogs and other people. And if I called her, she would come running back to me. And then we went on vacation and I got back into kind of the business grind. Started seeing more in-person clients, started putting a little bit more work into my social media, got back into into my business grind. And I said, okay, I've trained Bella, I'm happy where she is. I'm just gonna leave it at that. No one picked up on her training. And so it literally went down the drain. All the hours that I put in with her, they weren't maintained. I underdid her training. I didn't maintain it. And there's a saying, it's a very popular saying, use it or lose it. It's true when it comes to strength training, when it comes to cycling training, when it comes to dog training. And so all her training in essence has gone out the window. And now if I tell her, you know, Bella, come, she'll just look at me like I'm an idiot. Like, what's wrong with you? Why would I come? And so it's the same thing here. If you choose to not do anything, don't be surprised when you lose your health. But if you choose to do too much, don't be surprised if you've overdone it and are getting bad effects from that too. It's two extremes here. Ecclesiastes says, whoever fears God avoids all extremes. And so you need to find your balance. I can't tell you what your balance is. Maybe your balance is exercising for 3 hours a day, or maybe it's going on a 20-minute walk every day. Whatever your balance is, find it. Don't overdo it, don't underdo it, but find that one balance and stick with it. And just a quick mini tip, this isn't really a lesson in and of itself. Consistency will get you a lot further than perfection or intensity. Here's what I mean by that. Imagine for one day, you get enough water, you hit your macronutrients, you get your protein in, you eat enough fiber, you get your minerals and vitamins and micronutrients, you eat your veggies, you eat your fruits, you train, you do your fasted cardio if that's what you're doing, or you get your 3 hours on the bike, you get a strength training session in, you go to the sauna, you relax. You literally had the perfect day of health ever. And then the rest of the week you do nothing. Option number 2 is you don't eat perfectly, but today you decide you're going to change one small thing. Tomorrow you add on another small thing. So today I'm going to eat veggies in my lunch. Tomorrow I'm going to eat veggies in my lunch and drink enough water. The day after that I'm going to do those 2 and a training session. The day after that I'm going to go do those 3 and something on top. And you keep stacking and stacking and stacking these small little changes. You're going to go a lot further in the long run than the person who does one thing perfectly for one day and gives up. On to our last few lessons here. Social accountability is probably the ultimate performance hack that I have ever seen ever. So if you want a huge, enormous boost in performance and train like you've never trained before and hit records that you have never even thought possible to hit, get yourself some social accountability. A lot of the time we make these excuses to ourselves in our own mind, such as, why am I even doing this? What's the point? Me not choosing to continue this interval doesn't say something about who I am. It's not me giving up. I'm just choosing this because I don't feel like it. But when you put someone else in front of you, a friend or a coach or a mentor or your kid or your spouse, odds are you're not going to make those excuses. Or if you are, you're not going to give in to them. And athletes understand this effect. That's why, you know, arenas are filled with people, or Tour de France, there's hundreds of thousands of people lined up on the roads watching as Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard go up this climb, racing towards the finish. Now, social accountability can come in a few forms. Number 1 is your friends. This is whether it's working out with friends or having them watch you. It's common on a group ride to bring friends with you and they can push you around. And actually my best training numbers ever, my 5-second power and my best 1-minute power were produced with a friend on a group ride. Number 2 is your spouse or your family. And sometimes I call my wife down to the pain cave down there with where I'm on my trainer, and I call her down because I don't want her to see me fail as I'm training. And so it kind of gives me a little push to not give up. Another athlete I talked to, he planned a 250-kilometer ride, and he was not physically prepared to do that. And around halfway in, his legs cramped, he was not feeling good, he was really hurting in the saddle, his lower back was killing him, and luckily he had his wife and daughter driving right behind him. He needed support, you know, just in case. So his wife said, honey, are you sure you want to do this? Like, we can turn around, you already made it 125 kilometers, like no one cares. And he said, I am not going to let my daughter see me fail, to see me give up. Even if I have to walk the next 125 kilometers, I will. He ended up riding, he stuck through the pain, and he finished. And his daughter saw him complete that 250K. The third thing is social media. Now, I'm not always the biggest fan of, you know, people posting themselves on Instagram at the gym or whatever, but it can have pretty beneficial effects, such as Strava, you know, when you're posting your workout and people give you kudos. This is an incredibly powerful tool to use. And if you have a good social media following or a let's say a tight-knit, a close social media following, use it. And the fourth one is having a coach or a mentor or trainer. The amount of time I've had an athlete hit this personal best in front of me because they were trying to impress me, I can't even count. You naturally want to impress your trainer or your coach, and that's normal. Maybe you want to prove them wrong because they think you're incapable of doing something, and if that's the case, I maybe would think about looking for another coach, because if they're telling you you're incapable of something, either they're being way too brutally honest with you, or they're not the most supportive people. Or you just want to show them how much you've improved with the training routine. This pays dividends in the long run. And I wasn't even going to add this in the social accountability, but one of my clients mentioned to me how having me on his team has been incredibly helpful. I've been training for 10 years and I don't always enjoy it. There are seasons where you're going to be so excited and love what you do and have this insane excitement to train. And there are seasons where you're going to be bored and even dread your workouts. Sometimes it's one off day and sometimes it's a whole season. Sometimes I don't look forward to the workouts I'm doing, and yet I still show up, I get them done, even if I don't feel like it. There's this expectation that, you know, oh, I'm in fitness, I'm a trainer, or if you regularly go to the gym, that you just love it so much, that you love what you do. And sure, there is intrinsic motivation. Maybe you like the community aspect, maybe you enjoy the challenge, but sometimes just getting up and doing the thing is way harder than the thing itself. Just making the choice. There's this quote that we have in the gym. It's the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door. It's just choosing to go. Sometimes you just don't enjoy it, and that's okay. Ecclesiastes tells us there's a season for everything, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to weep, a time to laugh. And we must accept that there are going to be seasons, and they're going to change. Sometimes you're going to be very heavily focused on business or work. Other times you're going to be focused on family or education. And maybe sometimes it's going to be fitness. And so I plan around that. So for example, I have noticed that my natural peak when it comes to cycling is in September, October for some reason. Past few years, it's always been in September or October, I hit a peak. And so I allowed myself to hit that peak this year. I took advantage of it. I increased my volume on the bike. I increased my intensity. I worked a little bit harder and put more effort into my fitness. And I let maintenance mode for business or education or investing or anything else. Everything else was just in maintenance mode while I improved my fitness and actually enjoyed it. And right now, as I'm pumping out these YouTube videos and as I'm writing my book and finishing and serving my clients, my fitness is in maintenance. It might even be in a steady decline right now because I don't have my bike, but bike's at the shop, you know how it is. But other things in my life are in maintenance mode as I work on this one thing. And later in the year, when our baby arrives, everything else will have to go into maintenance mode to simply survive with having a baby. So instead of feeling guilty for not excelling in every part of your life at all times, learn to understand and work with these natural seasons. Recognize that your priorities change, and don't be so hard on yourself when they do. Each season has a purpose, and it's okay to not be in your peak at all times. There are times, as in my current situation, where you just have to force yourself to go work out and you don't look forward to it. Even if you try to make the most fun routine you can think of, you just don't look forward to it. And that's where discipline comes in. Think of it like a relationship. Sometimes you feel this overwhelming, deep flow love that you just want to express. Other times you feel mellow or down or angry, and other times you're neutral. In all of these situations, expressing love is still better than not, because that's what the relationship needs in order to thrive. Not because you feel like you love that person in every moment, but because that's what needs to be done. Do things even if you don't feel like it. We're so caught up in our feelings nowadays. I just don't feel like this. I just don't feel like that. Who cares how you feel? Your feelings are valid. I understand. My wife's a therapist. I love feelings. But stop letting your feelings control you. Do what is required, regardless of how you feel, because that's how you make progress. I once heard about this rule called the 80% rule. It goes like this: 80% of the time, you'll feel neutral. You will not be excited, you won't dread the activity, you'll just be neutral, right? It's just something that has to get done. That's okay. 10% of the time, you'll have these bad days where you just don't feel like really doing anything, everything's going wrong. And the other 10% of the time, you'll feel amazing. It's the best day ever, you'll have the best workout of your life, you'll feel really great. The 80% of the time, go ahead and just do things as normally. On those 10% where you feel like garbage, have grace with yourself. And on those 10% that you feel amazing, go and hit records and hit PRs and do your best and hit amazing achievements. And don't assume that just because you don't look forward to a workout, it means that there's something wrong with you or that you're not doing the right thing. So I don't look forward to all my workouts, and this is literally what I do for a living. Sometimes all it takes is a small change, a little variation, a different exercise, a new routine, and other times you just have to get through it. And that is perfectly normal. This is the last one though. Last lesson: that I've learned after 10 years, it's not just the training where the gains are made, it's in the rest. So your body operates, what am I slipping into my old accent? Your body operates in a state of equilibrium that's known as homeostasis. This is baseline. This is balance. When you train, you disrupt this balance. Your glycogen stores go down, your muscle fibers break down, you are stressing the neuromuscular systems, your blood pressure increases, your heart rate increases, you're exposing your body to a stressor. And this leaves you temporarily weaker than it was before. And this is what we call immediate training effect. You have reduced force generating capacity. You have all these things like you're not feeling as good, you're tired, you're weak, literally because you've broken down muscle fibers. Once your workout is over, recovery begins. And you need to recover because recovery is the process of returning back to homeostasis, back to the equilibrium. Your body is building itself back up. And if you give yourself the right environment, the right recovery, the right amount of time, you will actually adapt a little bit more and become a little bit stronger. And that's called supercompensation. That's where the magic happens. Your force generating capacity increases, more muscle glycogen stores. You have psychologically, you're happier, you're more confident, you feel like you can lift heavier. But this is also temporary. And that's why timing is so important when it comes to training. Take your rest seriously. If you train too soon and you don't give your body enough time to recover and adapt to your training, you'll disrupt your recovery, you'll lead to this overtraining and you'll come back weaker and stall your progress. If you wait too long after experiencing this supercompensation, you'll just come back down and experience something called involution, and then you're just back to where you started. And so timing is so important when it comes to training. To achieve consistent progress, you have to understand the recovery cycle, the periodization cycle, and train during that supercompensation window. Therefore, your recovery, how fast you recover and how well you recover is the true measure of strength. Because recovery actually dictates whether your work in the gym, on the bike, and whatever you do translates into results. The faster and more efficiently you recover, the better your performance will be. There you have it, folks. It's the first time I've used the word folks in my life, but 10 years of strength training advice in however many minutes this was. I guess we'll know post-edit exactly how many minutes it was, but I hope this was helpful. If any of you strength training veterans have other advice, please feel free to list them in the comments. Help people out on this page. If anyone saw this and it's like, oh, I know something that helped me, leave it down below. You don't know whose life you can change. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps supporting the channel. Like and subscribe if you are a cyclist looking to increase performance on the bike through strength training. Hope we can catch you next time on another video.